Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Accelerate Your Regional Test with SOS. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You may have joined the presentation listening using your computer's speaking system by default. If you prefer to join over the telephone, please select phone call in audio selection section and the dial-in information will be displayed. If you have the opportunity to submit You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into questions section of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. My name is Daria Kimpa-Green, and I'm a Senior Marketing Manager at SOS Labs, and I'll be moderator of today's webinar. Today, I'm joined by my colleagues, Amir Rozenberg, Director of Product Management, and Laszlo Simity, Senior Solution Engineer. We are also very happy to have with us Denis Ulyanov, Quality Engineer from Albelli, one of our customers who participated in our beta program for the new data center in Europe. Over to you, Amir.
Thank you so much, Daria, and a very good morning to everyone on the call. Laszlo, we can proceed to the next slide, please. I am very excited to share with you this morning the introduction of a new European data center. But before we go into the details, I want to take a step back and share with everybody our North Star in terms of continuous testing, doing it efficiently. We've recently revised our mission statement to say we want to make testing fast, reliable, and easy throughout the software development process. And this is truly our North Star. You'll see a bunch of initiatives that we're announcing today, all the way through SOSCon that's coming soon, where we are really focused on making testing, the testing practice basically align with the accelerated software development process that we're seeing in the marketplace. Next slide, please. And you know, the main reason is because we recognize that you know, to survive and lead in today's market in the various verticals that you may be in, it really comes together from three aspects. The first one, to achieve leadership, you really want to accelerate your speed to market. You want to lead in the various digital features to provide a compelling experience to your users that really have high expectations for features and services delivered over your digital experience. The next one is recognizing that customer experience really changed and evolved in the last few years from pure functionality of the experience all the way to delight and usability of the experience. So end users today naturally expect not only a functional experience, but also an experience that would be highly responsive, engaging, and even fun, even when you think about banking applications and so forth. And that usually means that you really need to align the practice of continuous testing and quality into the velocity that the software development cycle is now experienced. Next slide, please. But what we do find is when you think about accelerated software development cycle and releasing in confidence to the market, usually, and this comes from research by GitLab and research by the World Quality Report, the main blockers to really accelerate is time, basically, and time associated with testing. And so this is where we really put our attention into in several initiatives, as I mentioned, and particularly with the introduction of the European Data Center. Next slide, please. And so when we at SOS thought about the European Data Center, we particularly thought about the specific needs from the EMEA marketplace of our customers and prospects. First and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, is the application responsiveness, meaning how fast does it take to run a complete regression test or a smoke test? And can it fit into the software development cycle stages? For example, can you indeed fit a reasonable 10, 20 smoke test into each commit that you execute? So this is really an enabler to velocity in the software development cycle. The next one is corporate compliance. And here we have a very strong requirement from the European from the European market to basically keep test assets, scripts, VMs, devices, as well as test results in the region. So, for example, if you run a test in Europe, the data needs to stay in Europe, and the same way in the US. And lastly, localized coverage. So, for example, all of you are surely aware that there are different products and services offered on, for example, Amazon.com versus Amazon.de, different price points, different language, and so forth. And so the question is, if you're responsible for the front end of Amazon, how are you going to be able to test these different offerings in a localized manner? And all of you in large corporations are well aware of this discussion with IT and security. Hey, I need a browser that gets an IP address in Europe as well as IP address in the US. It's a difficult conversation, and not everybody associated with security and IT really understand the unique needs of the testing practice. And so, again, one of the unique EMEA market needs is to potentially have a local browser with an IP address in Europe versus a browser in the US. Next slide, please. And so aside requirements, the other perspective that we took when we think about the Sauce Lab application architecture is the organization structure of our customer base. So many of our customers, big or small, are split into a center of excellence that typically works on a project basis, project assignment with the various development teams, as well as distributed development teams inside the respective line of business. So you can imagine development and QA teams or squads, if you will, associated with consumer banking, for example, if we're talking about a financial services firm, or corporate banking, and so forth. The thing to mention, though, is that typically every one of those teams, if you were taking into account a global organizations, those teams typically are co-located in the same region. And that offers everybody the ability to effectively offer efficiencies in locating the various data centers in region. Next slide, please. And so the Sauce architecture is now going to split into two areas of our effectively application architecture. The test facility is going to be localized to serve those specifically regional teams, co-located teams. And so, you know that we have the US West data center. We have and we're now introducing the European data center in Frankfurt to serve our European audience. And we are going to increase in this manner to offer various data centers around the globe. And in offering these data centers, we are really focused again on the efficiency of executing small or large test suites, for example, smoke, regression, and so forth. And so the devices, the browsers, and the test assets are all going to be stored locally in that region. At the same time, we're going to centralize the administration tools. So your identity, your concurrency allocation, your association with a team, your security visibility of test data, and so forth, these are all going to be centralized such that we maintain security and allow efficiencies for the administrator to really manage the account. Next slide, please. And so I'm very, very excited to share with you that the European data center is ready for you to come in. We've been testing the European data center for quite a while now, and it now has the same, if not better, reliability and execution time as the US West, and really a leading in the marketplace from reliability and execution time. Those customers who have been using the Sauce Labs European data center have shown competitive results, both in terms of comparing to the competition, as well as comparing to the US West data center. And they've been able to really improve 50 to 70% naturally running a test from Europe to US West as compared to running a test locally in Europe. But if you think about it, what does that actually mean? What is the value delivered through this European data center? Well, that means that if you're in the business of running the regression test, now if you're running it once a week, maybe you can run it nightly, or maybe you can even run it several times a day and validate that the main branch is intact and not broken, and every developer branching off of the main branch can do so in confidence. For example, you can take smoke tests and now execute them almost every commit, maybe, and give developers instant feedback whether the introduction of the changes through the commit have broken the build, basically the branch, or they're good to go. So basically, we're through this velocity, through this improvement, we're enabling testing to shift left, basically to run earlier and run in a higher frequency, or if you chose so, for example, on a weekend test, through that efficiency of 50%, you can actually increase the coverage and add more test cases. For those of you who happen to be existing customers, we have made a transition from US West to Europe super easy and really aligned and very quick to do so. So, the new data center in Europe is something that we're really proud of. It's the first of a couple initiatives that we're going to announce around increased velocity and alignment of the software development lifecycle. And now what I'd like to do is transition over to Laszlo, to actually show you a demo.
Thank you, Amir. So as Amir said, what I'd like to do now is just show you a quick demonstration of our platform using the European data center. The first thing I'd like to show you is how to access a 2-week free trial with Source Labs. If you go to sourcelabs.com, you'll see that there is a big free trial link on the right-hand side here. And if you click that, you're able to enter some details and sign up for a free trial. What I want to just draw your attention to is this new data center dropdown, which allows you to select a free trial in either a European data center, which Amir just covered, or in our United States data center on the West Coast. I'm just going to head back to sourcelabs.com now, and I'm going to sign in to our new European data center. And I'm going to show you some of the features that Source Labs has. So you'll see when I go to sign in for existing customers, you'll note there's a new drop-down which allows you to select the data center, US West 1 or EU Central 1, to make sure that you sign into the correct data center. As Amir mentioned, Source Labs has created the new European data center with the goal in mind of ensuring that European customers' data remains inside the European Union. And so it is a completely separate instance of the Source Labs environment. You'll see once you log in that it's easy to tell which data center you're logged into via the drop down on the top right-hand corner, and also through the URL here. When you first log into Source Labs, you're taken to the dashboard, and the dashboard shows you tests that you have recently completed on our platform. It's split into builds, tests, and live tests. Automated builds are tests run as part of an automated build. So these are being tagged as running as part of a build, perhaps with Jenkins, as you can see in this case. Automated tests are all the automated tests we've completed on our platform recently. And live tests are any manual tests that we've completed on the platform recently. To get things started, I just want to show you our live testing functionality here. And this will give you an idea on the breadth of environments that we offer our customers in order to do their testing. You can see here that when we first click on live testing, we get the choice of testing on a web browser or a native mobile app. We also get the choice of then, once we select web browser, whether we want a desktop browser or a mobile device. You can see here in our desktop browser, we have a number of different common browsers that you can use. And you'll see here that we have many different versions of these browsers. And on Firefox and Chrome, we also offer the beta and dev branches of those two browsers. Once you select a particular browser that you'd like to test on, you can also select a resolution for the virtual machine. And you can also select a number of different operating system versions. And you can see here that this Chrome 73 offers about 10 different operating systems that we could run our test on. Once we've selected a browser and operating system that we'd like to test on, we just click Start Session. And behind the scenes, a unique and fresh virtual machine is then allocated for our session, and we're able to interact with that session easily through the web browser, as you can see here. Interacting with the session with the web browser is exactly as though it was local to us on our local machine. I'm just going to click Stop on that session now and head back into the environment. You can see here as well that we also have the capability for you to run your tests on real mobile devices. We have over 300 different types of real mobile device, and you can see here this includes most of the most common devices that you'll find in your market, including the very latest devices, and Source Labs really prides itself on being always providing the latest flagship devices as quickly as possible in our platform. You could also test on emulators and simulators, and Source Labs has over 200 different types of emulator and simulator that if you'd like to do your testing on an emulator or a simulator for mobile devices. These are particularly useful early on in your development cycle, where you have a large amount of testing that you need to complete, and you can do those on emulators and simulators very easily across high degree of concurrency, so over perhaps hundreds of different concurrent sessions doing lots of testing very quickly. So we have a number of different environments here, 800 different desktop browser combinations, 300 different types of real devices, thousands of actual real devices, and over 200 different types of emulators and simulators that you can perform your testing on. You saw how easy it is for us to do that testing in a manual sense, in a live test. But of course, the real value in Source Labs is being able to do your tests using an automation. And so the Source Labs platform provides you the ability to run any automated tests that are created using Selenium or Appium. In fact, any of these that utilize the WebDriver protocol will be accepted by the platform. I've just got a quick script here that you can see that automates some functions of testing a website. So you can see here that I'm setting a username and a password, adding items to the cart and so on. This happens to be JavaScript, but there are Selenium bindings for pretty much all of the major languages that you might use out there. And so running these tests on Source Labs is very simple. Many of you will already have Selenium tests in your environment that you'd be able to just simply change a few different configuration items and then run on Source Labs. When you run tests on Source Labs, you get a number of different features which automatically, by running those tests on Source Labs, so not only do you have automatic access to those 800 different types of browser and operating system combinations, but you also get a number of other features. So if we just take this test, which you can see was an automated test I ran about an hour ago using actually the script that you just saw, you can see that I ran this test on Mac OS X 10.13 and Chrome 73, and you can see that it passed. It ran for 24 seconds. If I click into this test, I get taken to the test details page. And this is where we can see some of the other real power of the Source Labs platform. The first thing is that a video is recorded for every test that you run on Source Labs. And this can be really powerful. This can be a really powerful way for you to debug issues that you might be having. Perhaps if your script failed, why did your script fail? It's very easy, just as you can see here, to have a look at the video and find that. We also record a commands tab here, which looks at every single command that your automated test made. And for each of these, you can see that a screenshot was also automatically recorded. So you can have a look at the different steps that your script is making, the screenshot against those where the DOM has changed, and enable you to very easily and quickly debug any issues with your script or with the application. We also can record extended debugging information. So for example, information about each of the different URLs that my script accessed and how long that URL took to download, and the different component requests that were made as part of that, along with breakdowns here, as you can see, of what the timings, where the time was actually spent in the browser. And of course, it's possible to download all of these different features that I just showed you using the metadata tab here. Source Labs also provides you with the ability to test applications that are behind your firewall, perhaps UAT environments, for example, or any of your test environments that are not exposed to the internet, by using our secure tunneling protocol called Source Connect, which is a very simple tool which you would run on your laptop and creates a secure connection between the Source Labs cloud and your environment. So Source Labs has, in short, all of the different environments that you might need to run your tests, cross-browser, cross-device, and including emulators and simulators, and the ability to automatically record different test artifacts, screenshots, and videos as part of your test. So with that, I am going to hand over to Dennis from Albelli, who's going to talk a little bit about their experience with Source Labs.
Hello, my name is Dennis. I'm a quality engineer working in Albelli, and I have a lot of experience running our test regression and smoke suits in the South Lab. And recently we are take part in experiment and switch from American data center to European one, and I will tell about my experience in a second. But before, I want to tell you a little bit more about our company and what we do, so you have a little bit more understanding what challenges we have and what was our solutions to that. So we are a personalized photo product company, meaning that we are printing for our customers personalized photo products as photo books, wall decors, photo on their coffee mugs, and many other products. We have a headquarters in Amsterdam, but also we have several offices in Norway, Sweden, France, and other European countries. We also have 2 factories that produce all those products. One of them located in Netherlands, and another is recently obtained in France. Our customer base at the moment is mostly in Europe. So our biggest markets are Netherlands and Norway and France, and also we have customers in Belgium, Germany, United Kingdom, Sweden, and other countries. We also used to be B2B and B2C company, meaning that we also provide services to another companies. Lately it's changed, and now we are purely B2C company, and that involves a lot of changes. And at the moment, we are facing a really complicated and interesting challenge. We need to split our monolithic infrastructure and application in a set of microservices that are much more scalable and can be moved to cloud and can withstand a load that our customers provide. Also, our business is really seasonal, so majority of our customers tend to open their computers and create their beautiful products in the autumn, closer to September, and our peak day is considered as Black Friday, which is quite common for a lot of e-commerce companies. And facing this challenge, we of course need to provide a lot of testing, and especially a lot of testing needed when we split some part of our application into a microservice because we need to guarantee to our developers and to our customers that their experience will be exactly the same and nothing is broken. Therefore, we need to run a lot of tests. And majority of our tests are UI. We have also API and mobile suites. And to run our tests, we use Java and Python together with WebDriver, Selenium, and just pure API calls. And our test infrastructure is mostly located in AWS. It's Jenkins with a lot of ES2 nodes as runners, and all our browsers are located in South Lab data center. So a few months ago, approximately a half year ago, we were approached with an offer to take an experiment and switch all our test executions from US data centers that we used to use for quite a long time. I think we are working together for more than 5 years. And all this time, when we were located in Amsterdam, all our tests was executed in US. Therefore, we was really glad to take a part in this experiment, and two teams decide to switch their test execution environments from US to Europe. And for both of our teams, it was a really, really good experience. First of all, because the process of switching to a new data center for us was really a piece of cake. For me, it was literally just changing the URL from one to another in my Java code. And also, we've seen a lot of improvements in test duration. So for my test suite, I have approximately 75 UI tests and approximately 80 or more API tests. And when we was used to run it in US data center, it took me about 45 minutes to execute. After the switch to European data center, I've have seen a decrease in execution times about 15 minutes, which given me at least 30% of improvements. For other team, it was much bigger difference. But before I switch to that, I want also to point out why our favorite feature, and it was mentioned before in presentation, it's a video recording. Because for majority of our tests are happening in checkout. It's a e-commerce domain when our customer can order their products. Sometimes it was really complicated to figure out what actually is not working, what was actually a problem. And just from logs, we cannot get this information, unfortunately. And in this case, video recording came really into help. So we can just go to our test archive, find the test that was executed among 75 others, and then actually see what was happening. And on the screen in the presentation, you can see that it's an unknown issue that happens, and if we won't be able to guess what's happening anyhow, but just viewing a video. So this is my personal favorite feature. Yeah, but going back to my another team, my colleagues who conduct their test in European data center, for them the difference was even bigger than for me. They also use in South Lab to run their mobile tests, and they have approximately the same amount of web UI tests as I do. And for them, improvements in web UI suite, the suite was about 100%, which is really, really a lot. And for mobile, they have really also a nice difference. It's decreased from 20 minutes to 15 minutes, which is in the development process really, really important. Another thing that I want to mention, it's some nice bonuses that we get while switching to European data center. We get constant support available by Slack. It's our regular communication channel within the company. So for me, it was exactly the same as just talking to my colleagues, and all guys in data center fix our problems within a day. And normally it was even faster, within an hour. And another really cool thing that our feature request was accepted. We get one of the features that we want to have, I think, in a month or so, or maybe even less. I won't say that for sure. And it was really, really a nice experience. So for any of you who is considering to use a different data center for their needs, I can share my experience. It was definitely a positive, and we are now running all our tests in European data center because that's where our all customers are and where all our system under tests are. So thank you very much, and maybe you have any questions.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. We'll now begin answering questions submitted during today's web presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions panel in your attendee control panel. So the first question that we have is, what is the biggest difference between the emulator and simulator? Which one is better to use in a mobile case, and which one in a desktop case? Amir, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Definitely happy to, and Laszlo, and anybody can comment here. So clearly, simulator is for iOS, iOS simulator, and emulators for Android. Clearly there are differences between utilizing a real device versus utilizing virtualized platforms. And so, clearly virtualized platforms, I would recommend those naturally for faster and more functional type of testing as you would do in your development cycle. As you're developing effectively, real devices would give you a little bit more coverage across different operating systems, versions, and different devices and so forth. And so real devices would expand the coverage and give you a more realistic perspective on the test that you're executing. For example, if you wanted to, if we look closely at performance testing, for example, an emulator or simulators would be good to measure anomalies and trends and changes, because for the most part they would be pretty consistent. And if you now download a 2 megabyte image to your application, it would show up as an anomaly. But if you wanted to get just baseline performance metrics for your application, such as what is my application load time, how long does it take to log in, I would recommend, for example, using a real device, because the real device does have applications running in the background, and it does have limited CPU and memory and other resources. So, that's an example when I would use real devices versus emulators and simulators.
Thank you, Amir. The next question we have from Nicholas. When I purchase a plan, will it be limited to a region, or do I have access to both US and Europe? Laszlo, do you want to answer this one?
Maybe I can take that one. So basically, if you're using a self-serve platform, then indeed you would be limited to that data center where you purchased the plan. If you are part of our enterprise organization structure, then similarly, and it's a little bit similar to the Amazon model, you are more on a device or VM allocation, less so minutes. And here again, those VM licenses or devices would be specific to a region.
All right, and we have a final question, also to Amir, I'm afraid. What would you say is the impact of testing practice of test executing faster?
Yeah, definitely. So like we heard from the gentleman from Albelli, doing things faster clearly is much better in many respects. Even if nothing else, if you can go and grab a coffee, or maybe now not, that's goodness. Things are running faster. That means, firstly, they're more reliable. Secondly, If you're able to deliver a test result faster to a developer, effectively they remember the code that they just committed and they can fix it on the spot. And so it doesn't cause any delay to the rest of the team. The developer is super efficient as is possible, and really execute the fixes on the spot. In a more larger scale, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you've got more time, that means that either you can execute more, you can elevate the frequency of running specifically smoke tests and regression tests, to validate the branch sanity, main branch sanity, or the branch that you're working on, or alternatively, you can run a smoke test per commit. Um, and that means that, on the weekend or in the night, you can also increase the coverage and add more testing that you couldn't fit in before. Um, and so that's a little bit from a testing perspective. But what that also enables, now that you can move testing to happen a little bit earlier and you can increase the frequency of testing, it also allows shifting of also typical QA center of excellence resources into the sprint, because the faster you run these test cases, the more frequent you run these test cases, you can allow yourself to also innovate to in sprint script creation, and that means that there is room for typical testers to join development teams and become software development in test and really be part of the sprint initiation, write test cases, whether in sophisticated languages such as Java or JavaScript, or using BDD and other tools, and really be part of that team. And so I think also organizationally, these things enable a change and enable also individuals to raise their skill level and really be more valuable to the entire organization.
Perfect. Thank you, Amir. Thank you, Laszlo and Dennis. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. You'll receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. On behalf of Sauce Labs, Albelli, and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and enjoy the rest of your day.